Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Microsoft Word webinar accessible to people with disabilities. I hope that you're all having a lovely Tuesday. I'd love to know where everybody is coming in from if you want to drop it into the chat. I'm coming in from Sacramento. Another Sacramento, hello there. Hayward, Sacramento. Ooh, Cupertino, nice. Hi, Julie. We've got Anaheim, San Marcos. All over North and South California. Hi, Kelly. Hong Kong, hello. Hi there, Rashana. We'll get started here in about a minute or so. I'll let everyone continue to join. Let us know where you're coming in from. Looks like all over. New York, you're ready to end your day. Hi, Vincent. Hong Kong, quite interesting. Me too, Jody. Hi, Russell. Berkeley, lovely. Got everyone from all over. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to share my screen really quickly. Bear with me. All right, hi everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Amora. I'm going to be moderating this webinar with Microsoft. For audio description purposes, I'm a biracial woman in her 30s with tan skin, glasses, and black hair. First off, here at CFILC at Ability Tools, and we take accessibility very, very seriously. So we're going to do a quick accessibility check before we get started, and I shoot it on over to Peter. This meeting is indeed being recorded. The slide deck that will be presented today, as well as the recording, will be automatically emailed to everyone once edits are complete. The recording will be archived on the Ability Tools YouTube channel. We will send that all out to y'all so you can access it. On the screen is a screenshot of the Zoom toolbar. For this meeting, we have enabled the Q&A, chat, closed captions, and raise hand features that are highlighted on the screen. Please note that there will be verbal image descriptions taking place throughout the presentation of the images and videos that are displayed. Next up, we have captions displayed on the screen via the CC icon. If you would like to access captions today, you can do so by going to the meeting controls found on the bottom of your screen and select that CC icon. Here you will be able to gain access to the automatic captioning provided by Zoom by checking Show Subtitles. Alternatively, we have a captioner joining us today. Thank you again, Richard. These will be incredibly accurate captions, whereas the automatic ones aren't always that accurate. To access these, you can use the stream text link that we are going to drop into the chat for you, and it will be dropped periodically if you'd like to join. It's a great option because you can change the font size, font color, and make the captioning full screen. If you are in need of any other accommodations, please message our Ability Tools tech hosts that you'll see in the participants list directly in the chat if you need to step away, grab some water. This is a safe space to accommodate whatever you need. So if you run into any issues, please DM us. We're here to help. On this screen are the Q&A and raise hand icons. Please note that the main chat is reserved for networking and interacting with one another. So have fun connecting, but questions should be entered into the Q&A located in the meeting controls at the bottom of your screen. Or if this is the most accessible option, you can signal with the raised hand icon, a function located in those same controls at the bottom of your screen. We will be doing Q&A throughout the presentation after each segment that Peter completes. And so we will try our best to address everyone's questions with the time that we have. Afterwards, we may have additional time for additional questions, but we'll be answering them periodically throughout. Please note, although Peter is extremely knowledgeable on this subject and here to help us, he's not necessarily here for direct tech support. So if you have any of those questions, we have contact information for you at the end of the presentation. Thank you for sitting through my little bit of housekeeping, and I'd like to pass it on over to Peter with Microsoft.
Hi, thank you so much. I'm Peter Wu from Microsoft. I'm a principal software engineer there, and I'm going to talk to you about Microsoft Word today. And there's two main topics I'm going to cover. First, if you are a person with one or more disabilities, I'm going to talk to you about the accessibility features and the assistive technologies that you can use together with Word that could help make it easier for you to work with it effectively. And then a second topic, which is related but a little different, is about creating documents in Word that are accessible to people with disabilities. So it does take some know-how and techniques from the author of the document to make sure that the content is accessible. And this is applicable to really everybody because we all write documents. And especially if you are a family member or loved one or colleague or teacher of somebody who has disabilities. Um, and really, there 1 in 5 people worldwide have a disability, and 70% are non-apparent. So, just about any kind of communication that you do is not going to be inclusive of people with disabilities unless you make your content accessible. And we're going to learn how to do that today. So great. I'm really excited to be here, and we'll get started. So I'm going to mostly talk about software features that come free with the major operating systems and with Word when you purchase either a Microsoft 365 subscription or one of the more recent versions of Office like 2024, which just came out. And some of the features are not going to be available in the older versions. So if you have the latest versions, if you have a Microsoft 365 subscription, you'll be able to access all of the things I'm talking about today. But first, I'm going to start with a little bit of hardware that you can purchase separately that could help you out as well with these experiences. So firstly, a product that came out a few years ago called the Surface Adaptive Kit.
Peter,
Works. Hello?
sorry, your screen's not being shared yet.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's
I
okay.
was
That's
I was
okay. I don't
sharing and
think
then it got taken away. Sorry about that. I
that's
will
okay.
share again. Okay, can folks see?
Yes, perfect.
Oh, great. Thank you so much. So I was going to talk to you about a product that came out a few years ago called the Surface Adaptive Kit. It's just retails for $14.99. It's a small little kit of things that can help make your computing experience a little easier. It works great with Surface devices, but it really works well with anything, any kind of computer or other device that you're using. And the idea behind it is really simple, some small things that make a big difference in your ability to use the products. These are just tactile bump stickers that you can place on certain keys or certain places, just to give yourself a reminder so that you know what's there. Like if you are blind or low vision and can't see those keys or buttons. And there's some other ones that go directly on that are kind of designed specifically for the keys on your keyboard. Similar to the ridges on the F and J keys, but you can, put more of them on there so that you can, if you get mixed up about which is the control key versus the alt key, these types of things can help you out. And especially for port labels, you can label the cable and the corresponding port that you should plug it into, so it's easy to match those up. And they have tactile bumps on them. And then lastly, there's a little handle that you can add. This is useful for example, with a Surface Pro device that has a little kickstand. If you if you have limited mobility or only one hand or something, adding the handle can make it easier to open that kickstand. So that's another type of device. And like I said, it's a simple little kit for $14.99 that can help you out. Another set of devices that came out recently is the Microsoft Adaptive Accessories. And this is a set of pointing devices, like a mouse and some other alternative kinds of devices that can help people with limited mobility or limb differences and things like that be able to use a pointing device more easily. So here you see the Microsoft Adaptive Mouse and a optional purchase separately mouse tail and thumb support kind of attachment. You can create a left-handed or right-handed mouse with that. And the blue parts that you see on the right are things that you can 3D print as custom attachments to really, customize it to suit your needs. There's also a Microsoft Adaptive Hub, which has some ports that you can plug in some additional controls into, a D-pad button, a dual button, and a joystick button. And then again, 3D printed custom attachments that you could place on them to make them more suitable for you. So it's really trying to address a really wide range of needs and customizing it for what would work best for you. And so that's the first step. If you are having challenges using a pointing device, you might want to give one of these a try to see if it makes it easier for you. And I do have a great video about this. What I'm going to do is first make sure we can get through other topics we're going to cover. And if we have some time at the end, I'll show you the video where a few people that are using these devices talk about their experiences with them. So the rest of the talk is going to be about software. And so I'm going to talk about if you even with those great pointing devices, what if you still can't really use a pointing device? How can you interact with your software? And we'll dive into, how to use a Word with just the keyboard. But before I dive into that, I'll pause here for questions. See if there's anything I can answer for you about the Surface Adaptive Kit or Microsoft Adaptive Accessories.
You do
Sorry,
have a
Peter.
couple of
Yeah.
questions in the Q&A.
Yeah, we do. So we have Linda Berry asked, where can you get the kit? They say that looks very helpful.
Yes, go to Microsoft.com and I believe there's a link to the store from there where you could order that. Um, Microsoft used to have retail stores in malls, but that program has been downsized quite a bit. But you can order all of that online, and so you'll want to go to the Microsoft Online store where you can order that.
Great, and we can drop that link in there too for you guys to the Microsoft Online Store. Maurice would like to know, where can you find the plans for the 3D printed items?
I believe that comes with the devices that I spoke about. So if you get an adaptive mouse, that'll have the information about the models and how you can, use that to print your custom attachment.
Lovely. Yeah, so we'll drop that link for you. And then we'll go ahead and get to that video it will be audio described when we play the video. But there is the link. Those were the questions. If anybody else has any other ones, let us know. But those were the ones that we had.
Great. Okay, thank you so much. Yes, so now we're going to dive into using Word with just the keyboard. And so this is great for I think like three different categories of people. If you have any mobility impairments or limb differences that makes it difficult to use a pointing device, you might find using a keyboard easier or more efficient. If you cannot see the mouse pointer, if you're blind or low vision, then using a keyboard can work a lot better. And then thirdly, even if you don't fit in either of those categories, some people find that using the keyboard is just more efficient. Power users save time by remembering shortcuts and other ways of navigating with the keyboard so that they can get their task done quicker. So I will show you a lot of video demonstrations to just give you an idea of how it works in Word. And in the handout document, there are links where you can get more detailed information about this. So first of all, I'm going to show you in Word for Windows how you can use the F6 key to move the keyboard focus around to the major regions in the application. Because Word has so many things you can click, it's a little bit too big for one tab loop. And so it is subdivided into these regions. And F6 and Shift F6 are the ways to cycle through those regions. And then within the region, you would tab. So first, let's just see what happens with F6 and Shift F6. As I'm pressing F6, the keyboard focus moves and there is this black outline around the element that's in focus. And so F6 goes in the forward direction and cycles, and then Shift F6 goes in the reverse direction. So that's the first thing you'll need to learn when using Word with the keyboard. And then once you get into a region like the ribbon, let's say, you would use the tab key to cycle through the elements within that region and shift tab to go backwards. So here we're going through some buttons in the ribbon. And like I said, shift tab just goes backwards. And once you get to one of these items, you can usually interact with it with the enter key, the space key, sometimes arrow keys, sometimes escape to take you back one step. Just your pretty typical standard navigation keys. Okay, and then the next thing I'm going to show you is key tips, which is a way that you can get to the buttons on the ribbon quickly. So if I press the Alt key, it places focus on the ribbon tab, then these little letters appear, and then you press the letter of the control that you want. So what happens is I pressed Alt H1. That moves the focus to the ribbon. Then that selected the Home ribbon tab, and then it selected the bold button on the Home ribbon tab, and that's what bolded the word in the document. So once I learn that, I can, do it really quickly. I can do that, even faster than with the mouse. Okay, so that's another way you can work with it. And another way you can use the keyboard is to search. You press Alt Q, and that'll put the focus in the search box. And then you type the name of the command you want, in this case, bold. So I type that in, and that will show up in the list of results. I can just arrow key down to that item and invoke it, and then that will perform the command. So several different ways that you can use the keyboard to get around and use all of the commands. So I will pause there and let me know if you have any questions about using the keyboard to operate Word.
You did have one question in the chat that asked, are these tools for Mac as well?
Yes. So a lot of the navigation that I showed you works the same in the Mac. Some of it's a little bit different. So refer to the handout with links to the help articles to get into all the specifics. Um, but in general, yes, you can navigate around the app with the keyboard and the Mac. Now, there is a caveat that there is a system setting called keyboard navigation, which is off by default on Mac OS, and you won't be able to get to all the controls unless you turn that on. So if you are somebody who wants or needs to use the keyboard, you'll want to turn on that setting. That way, when you tab, it'll go to each of the controls rather than skipping over some of them and only going to certain ones. But that is covered in our help articles, so please refer to those to take a look. And most of what I'm demonstrating today is in Word for Windows, but I will note where most of it is applicable to other platforms, including Mac, and some of it to mobile as well. And when there are some Windows specific features, I'll note which ones those are. Okay, great. If there aren't any other questions, I'm going to move on to our next topic, which is for people who have low vision, using a screen magnifier may help you out so that everything is larger so that you can read the text more easily. And so I'll show you how that works. So here's the standard screen, and let's say you're having trouble reading some of the text, and not just the document, but let's say in the ribbon and other places like that. Well, what you can do is press the Windows key and the equals key, which is also where the plus symbol is. So Windows equals, and that will zoom in. And that will first launch the free built-in screen magnifier called Magnifier on Windows. And then if you press it again, then it'll increase the zoom level. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to press Windows equals, and it launches, and then I press it one more time and it goes to 200%. I press it one more time and it'll go to 400%. And if I go Windows minus, then it'll go back down to 200%. Now what's happened is everything's bigger, but that same workspace now is 4 times the size of the screen, and not all of it fits on the screen. So as I'm moving my mouse pointer around, it's not only moving the mouse pointer, but it's also panning the workspace so that I can get to the other parts of it. So that's one of the learning curves about using a screen magnifier, is that your viewport doesn't cover the whole screen now, and you'll need to pan around to see the parts of the screen that you want to work with. Okay, so that's the basic idea behind a screen magnifier. And I will show you a couple of pitfalls, some difficult situations to get into when using a screen magnifier, and I'll show you, some of the techniques for how to get around those problems. So I'm going to move my mouse pointer over one of the buttons in the ribbon, and that will cause a tooltip to appear. And unfortunately, the tooltip goes off the edge of the viewport. So I scoot my mouse over to the right, and that will pan the viewport, but that also moved the mouse pointer off the button, and now the tooltip disappeared. So that can be a little bit of a frustrating situation. Let me show you what you can do to be able to read, what's in that tooltip. So this time I've got my mouse pointer on the button in the ribbon, and before I scoot the mouse pointer over to the right, I'm going to first scoot it down into the tooltip itself. Because the tooltip is what's called hoverable. When the mouse pointer is in the tooltip itself, the tooltip will still be visible. So if I do that, then I scoot to the right and keep my mouse pointer inside the tooltip, then it will stay visible and I can read it while I'm, panning the viewport to get it into view. So just keep that in mind with how you work with these tooltips. And then another predicament is that if I'm here hovering over the button on the ribbon, let's say it's really inadvertently, um, and I don't want to move my mouse around because it causes the viewport to pan. I just want to get that tooltip out of the way so I can read what's under there. What you can do is, without moving the mouse, you just press the control key, and that will dismiss the tooltip. So it disappears. And now I can read, whatever is underneath there, and I don't have to worry about the screen viewport panning around. So that's one of the things you can do to get around those challenges with using a screen magnifier.
Peter, we do have a few questions if you wouldn't mind taking a beat to
Oh,
answer
great.
some of
Yes,
these.
yes, please do.
Okay. So I currently see right now that Desmond has their hand up. Would that be the same question that was in the chat, Desmond, or would you like to speak it? I can read it out loud. The question in the chat is, how did you pull up the Zoom controls to stay on the screen?
Oh, yes. So it was the Windows key and the equals key. So Windows equals. And really equals is also the plus key. So think of it as the plus being there to zoom. Um, and you can also go to Windows Start menu, settings, accessibility, and then magnifier. That's another way to launch the magnifier.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. And then will we be, is there access to these commands somewhere that we can link them to, or is that all going to be in this document that we provide?
Right. So in the handout document, there are links to the help articles about all of the things that I'm speaking about. I believe there's a link to Windows Magnifier. So if you go to that one, it'll talk all about how Magnifier works and all the features in there.
Great. And then that command that you used for the search box, would you mind repeating that?
Oh, yes. Okay. So it's Alt Q. So think of Q for question. And that's where you can ask your question, where you would query what command that you want to perform.
All right, just two more. Someone stated that they have sticky keys always on, but sometimes there aren't, they can't use 3 actions. Do you know if there's a workaround to that?
Oh, I don't know offhand. That's a great question. Um, I know there's a lot of settings in the operating system to control that. You might just have to kind of play around with some of the other settings to see which ones works best for you.
Thank you. And then a real quick question I had too, that was a comment in the chat. Is there a way to possibly see some of the demos that you're doing? Like if you were to read them on a screen reader, is there a way to see that live or?
I'm going to cover screen readers briefly, and it's going to be with some pre-recorded videos. Once we've gotten past that section, if you have further questions about screen readers, I'm happy to dive into that or maybe even demo some of that live. But let's go wait till we get to that section of the presentation and let me know if that covers what you were interested in.
All right. Thank you, Peter.
Yes, yes, awesome. Thank you so much for all the great questions. Okay, so on this topic of enlarging the content on the screen, for people with low vision, I'm going to talk about another way you can do the enlarging, which is the display scale setting in the operating system. Now, one of the reasons why there is even this display scale setting is that as newer displays were coming out, they had more and more pixels, but they physically weren't bigger than the older displays. They just had higher density. So if you displayed the content, the icons, the text, all with the same number of pixels, that's actually physically smaller than it was on the older monitors. So we needed to apply a scale factor so that you don't have everything really tiny on the screen. So that can help you adjust so that these higher density pixel displays don't have really tiny content on them. But you can adjust that setting further. If you have low vision, you want to use a higher scale, that'll make the content bigger for you, and it'll be very sharp because you have a lot of resolution in these new monitors. So I'll show you how you can do that. So you go to settings again, and you go to display in the system section. And under scale, there are some different values you can apply. So in this case, it was at 125 originally, and I increased it up to 175. So I think that's like 140%, difference in the scale factor. And so what you see is the text in the ribbon and in the document everywhere is bigger, but the workspace still fits on the screen. So this is a very important difference than when using the screen magnifier. With this approach, I don't have to pan around with the viewport. Everything fits on the screen. Well, sort of. Like the screen is effectively smaller now because I've applied this scale factor to it. And so, for example, the ribbon, which used to be able to display lots of buttons, there's less space. We can't display as many buttons now. Well, the logic in Word dynamically lays out the ribbon to give you the best that it can in the space available. So, for example, there used to be a section in the ribbon that had a bunch of buttons for paragraph formatting. And because there's limited space, what happened is it collapsed into a drop-down button. But when you click that drop-down button, then that section of the ribbon expands and I can get to all of those buttons. So the app just kind of intelligently reconfigures itself to work in this effectively smaller space that we have on the screen now. And it might take a few extra clicks to get to some of the commands, but they're still all available here, even with the effectively smaller window. Okay, so I'll pause here. Any questions about using the display scale setting? Also sometimes called the DPI setting for dots per inch.
I don't see any quite yet. I'm sure if you think of anything. Oh, I saw one pop up with
Okay.
rescaling work outside of Word. Many programs on the computer. Okay, so yeah, can you rescale outside of Word?
Absolutely. So this is a feature of the operating system. And both Word and Mac OS have, I'm sorry, Windows and Mac OS have this feature. And furthermore, it is a per display feature. So you could have one of your displays at a one scale and another display at another scale. And you might need to because those displays might have different pixel density, or maybe one's closer to your eyes than the other one. But then the application, if it's well written, it will be able to adapt to the different setting that you have. With some applications, you might need to restart it after you've changed the display setting. You should not have to do that with Word or any of the other Microsoft 365 apps. Yeah, and so you can pretty quickly change that setting as you need. It applies to everything on the display. And if you then drag your Word window from one display to another, it's going to adapt to the scale setting of that display after you drop it there. And if you're using the web version, um, this scale setting applies, and there's another scale setting in the browser. And so both of those apply, and they multiply together. And that can use the browser setting is usually something that it can be applied to each individual browser tab. So if you're pulling up various different websites, you can be applying different zoom factors to those different browser tabs.
Great. And then a bit off topic, Peter, but I think still relevant. This version of Word that you're using, is this the most updated version? It looks a little different on some people's computers.
Yes, absolutely. There are lots of versions around. It's I think close to 40 years old. It's in the high 30s. If you have one of the older versions, it's going to look a little different and may not have all the features shown here. This is a very recent version on a Microsoft 365 subscription.
Thank you. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
that's
So
all
if
we
any
have.
of the features are missing, check your version, and really the best way to stay up to date and have all the latest features is to get a Microsoft 365 subscription. Really good. I will move on to the next topic, and this one is specific to Windows, which is that in addition to the display scale setting, there is also a text size setting. There is one in Mac OS as well, but it's not that many applications support it. And unfortunately, Word doesn't have support for it. But on Windows, the Microsoft 365 apps, including Word, support the Windows text size setting, with one caveat, though, that you do need to restart the application after you change the setting. So if you go to settings and this time go into the accessibility section and then go to text size at the top here, you will have a slider control, and that lets you increase the scale of the text. So that scale goes from 100% all the way to 225%. Now it's not as high as you could with the display scale setting or with the screen magnifier, because you're trying to scale just the text and maybe not all of the graphics. Um, and things can start to get out of proportion when you do that. And in reality, you do have to scale at least some of the graphics in order for things to make sense. But yeah, so you can't apply a very drastic scale setting here. But sometimes what people need is just the text to be a little bit bigger. Then they could read it. And that's what's happened here. It looks very similar to using the display scale setting. And the text in the ribbon and the icons as well have scaled. But some of the other things like the amount of padding around the controls has not scaled. So that actually, at least proportional to the controls themselves, is actually a little bit smaller now. But this, makes good use of the space available to give you that larger text that's easier to read. Okay, so that's another option you can use if you want to make the text easier to read on the screen. So any questions on that?
I see no questions yet, but I'll shoot you one if I see it.
Great, thank you. And again, just a quick reminder with this is that if you change the setting, make sure to restart the application after you do that. And then another thing you can do is customize your mouse pointer color and size to make it easier to see. I think you may have seen my pointer pop up here. I have customized mine to be bigger and yellow. That makes it easier for me to see it. I'll show you where the setting appears. You go to Settings, Accessibility, Mouse Pointer and Touch. And that's where you can choose the color and the size. I'm not going to change the actual values here because it doesn't show up in the screen recorder that I'm using. But that's where you could customize those settings. And that can help you not lose track of where your mouse pointer is. And a similar setting that is only available on Windows is called the text cursor indicator. Sorry. This one, you go to accessibility section, and then you go to text cursor. And then there's a thing called text cursor indicator and a switch. You can turn that on and then choose a size and color for it. And so what happens is near the insertion point or text cursor, there is a teardrop shape on top and on bottom of it. And that just makes it much more visible. So I made it hot pink here. So it's very easy to see. And that way, like when I'm moving around the insertion point in the Word document, I don't lose track of where it is. I can very easily find it. So I find that feature very helpful myself, so you don't lose track of where things are. The vertical line, you can also adjust the thickness of that so that it's easier to see. Okay, any questions on that?
I don't see any questions.
Great. Okay, I will move on to the
Oh,
next topic, which is that there are color filters in the operating system that can help you if you have color blindness and can't distinguish certain colors. It, of course, isn't a complete solution to being able to understand content that's inaccessible, but it could be helpful. In this case, I have a line chart that could be hard for somebody who's colorblind to read. You can try out these filters to see if they help. You go to accessibility in settings and go to color filters and scroll down a bit and turn the switch on. And then you can choose among the various filters, like one that's designed for deuteranopia, protanopia, tritanopia. You can try out all of those, and it applies to everything on the screen. And then you can see if it makes it easier to understand the content. Later in this presentation, I'll talk about what authors of the content should do to make their content accessible to people who are colorblind. But in case authors haven't done that and you've received some content, this might be helpful for you to understand the content. So any questions on color filters? I showed you the feature here in Windows, and it is also available in the recent versions of macOS as well. Great, I'll move on. There is a dark mode in each of the operating systems. So it's quite popular. People like to use it at night when there's less light in the room. Sometimes people with light sensitivity find that it's easier on their eyes. And so it's pretty easy to use. You just go into settings again and choose personalization, then colors, and then choose your mode, either light or dark. So what happens is Word at its default setting will follow the operating system setting. So you made the operating system dark, Word is also going to be dark. And that includes the all of the user interface, like the ribbon, and the document canvas as well. So one thing you'll notice here is that the headings in the document were blue. And now that I've gone into dark mode, those headings are still blue. So that's good. It doesn't look, orange or some alarming weird color like that. But the shade of blue is lighter so that it contrasts well with the dark background. So there's actually been some inversion of the luminosity of the colors. The dark colors became light and the light colors became dark, but not an inversion of the hue of the color. So we didn't take the blue and turn it into orange, for example. So now it kind of looks like your original document, but just dark now. And it could be easier on your eyes and easier to read. And this is a view setting. We didn't edit the document. It's not going to change how other people see the document and how it prints and so forth. This is just my personalized view of the document. And then let's say I wanted to use the dark mode of the operating system, but I don't really want Word to be dark. So I can override that. And let's say I've turned on dark mode in Windows. Now I can go into Word and say I don't really want dark mode here. I can go to Account, and there's an Office theme setting, which by default says Use System Setting, but I can change it back to the default theme called Colorful, and then it is, not following the operating system setting. So even if the ribbon is dark, I can click the switch mode button on the view ribbon tab, and that will toggle on and off whether or not the document canvas follows the dark mode. So I can still have that document in the original colors. So if I need to, for example, just kind of preview it to see, did I choose the right colors and what other people are going to see when they receive the document, I can switch the mode and look at that and say, oh, okay, that's good. I can switch the mode back off if, it's easier on my eyes to work in the dark mode. So that is what you can do if the bright colors on the screen are hard on your eyes. So I'll pause there again. Any questions?
I don't see any questions regarding that. I do have a comment slash, I think, question that we can create. For older people who have gotten used to past versions of Word, are there ways to stabilize the menus, or do they have to just use older versions that they've gotten used to?
Well, that is a great question. There is some customization you can do, but there is a limit to what you can do. Like you can add new sections to each ribbon and add your own buttons there, but you can't really remove the core sections. So um, to some extent, maybe you'll be able to customize it, but yeah, and in other ways is there it is changing over time, and there's more features being added. I will say though that we're very mindful of not making it a jarring experience for people who've been using Word for many, many years. So when a new button is added to the ribbon, it's actually a pretty big deal. We'll just, make sure that this isn't going to be disruptive for people that are already familiar with Word. But you don't have a complete control to be able to stop that. If you are on a Microsoft 365 subscription and getting the new versions, that it will change over time.
Thank you, Peter. And James would like to know if these dark mode changes can be made on Excel and PowerPoint as well.
Yes, all of the Microsoft 365 apps support the dark mode, but really it's only Word and Outlook that support it in the document canvas currently. So, but the ribbon, the dialogues, and task panes and other types of user interface will support the dark mode. Um, PowerPoint's a little exceptional because it has presenting views, and those are always dark, regardless of whether the the operating system is in the light mode or dark mode. It has some roots back in where in when sometimes when you're presenting, you're doing it with the lights out in the room, in a dark room with a projector, and having a bright screen is a bit jarring there. So it's a little more discreet for the screen to be dark in that type of scenario.
Awesome. Thank you, Peter. I think that was it.
Yeah, thank you. Another thing you can do if you have light sensitivity is use a feature called contrast themes in Windows. And it applies a whole different color palette to Word, both the user interface and the document canvas, which has much higher contrast. Um, and at least some of the themes are dark, in case that's what you prefer. But there's also a light contrast theme as well. So I'll show you what those look like, and you just try them out and see if you like them and if you think they would be helpful for you. So you go to Settings, Accessibility, Contrast Themes, and then you can choose from the drop down which theme you want. The first one is called Aquatic, and that's one of the dark themes. So it has a very dark gray background and white foreground. And so the text is very stark and very easy to read. And then there's this highlight color, this cyan type of color used for highlights, like when a button is selected or in focus. And so you can see those elements all very, very clearly. I would say the one caveat with this is that there's a lack of color. Like in the document canvas now, those headings that used to be blue, they're now simply white. So you can read them more easily, but you won't know exactly what they look like for people who are not using the contrast themes and receiving this document. But really, if you want to prioritize your ease of reading, you could switch on the contrast themes so that you can get something really crisp and easy to read. And I will show you what one of the light themes looks like. You can go back to Settings and choose Desert, which is one of the light themes. And this is what it looks like. It's kind of an off-white background, kind of a natural paper kind of look. And yeah, It's nice and crisp as well, and easy to read. And they're 4 built-in themes, but in Windows you can go and customize them. You can go and change each of the colors in the palette. Okay, so any questions about contrast themes? Mac OS has a feature called increase contrast, um, which is great if if the contrast is something that helps you be able to see the content better. It visually does not look like the Windows contrast themes at all. It looks similar to the standard theme, except that they've just made the contrast of the color slightly higher and added more boundaries around elements, just to make them more visible. So you can try out that setting in case it makes it easier for you to see the content. Any questions on contrast themes?
I don't see any yet.
Great. I will keep moving then.
Oh,
Um,
let's
so
see.
now I will show you
Oh,
how.
I'm sorry, Peter, we do have one.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
It says that one of the changes was missed. Could you possibly show those changes one more time?
Sure. Can you say which one?
Yeah, do you know which ones were missed that you didn't get a chance to see? The contrast.
Oh, contrast themes? Sure. I'll back up a few steps here. So I started out in the normal theme, and then I went into the settings app, accessibility, contrast themes, and I chose one of the themes from the drop down and clicked apply. And then it'll take a few seconds to apply it to everything on the Windows desktop. Then you can see what your app looks like with the new theme applied. And then when I wanted to switch to the light theme, I went back to the settings app and chose desert from the dropdown, clicked apply, and in a couple seconds, it updates the whole desktop and you can see the app and the new theme. Did that answer your question?
Is there a shortcut key to get to there?
There is. I don't happen to remember off the top of my head, but if you take a look at the help article, that will have it there. And if you go to the contrast themes uh, uh, setting, I believe it's listed there. So yeah, it says left Alt, left Shift, print screen. It's not the easiest thing to remember, but they do list it there in the user interface.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Next, I will get into using Word with a screen reader. So the things I've shown so far have mainly been for people with low vision or color blindness, um, or other types of issues with your vision that can make it difficult to see the content on the screen, and enhancements that will make it easier to see the content. But if you have very low vision or are completely blind, maybe none of these visual techniques work at all, and or maybe just you're going to be more efficient working in a different way where the contents are read aloud, and instead of having to rely on seeing the things visually. So a screen reader will read the content on the screen, either in speech, or you can also use it together with a Braille device if that is how you work, or if you also have hearing impairments, or you just find it more efficient to work that way. You can do that as well. I'm going to demo today just how to use it together with speech and just show you what that experience looks like. You can turn on the free screen reader that comes with Windows that's called Narrator by going to Settings, Accessibility, Narrator, and then turning on the switch.
Settings window, narrator, toggle switch on.
And as soon as you turn it on, it starts speaking, and it's telling you about the element that's in focus. Now, we showed you earlier how you can use features and Word with the keyboard. Typically, the keyboard and the screen reader are used together because it's can be hard to see the mouse pointer. And so I'll show you some demonstrations of that experience with those two together. So here I am going to navigate around the ribbon and with the keyboard, and then narrator is going to be speaking aloud, what's in focus.
Copilot summary, information. Status bar, page number page 1 of 7, button. Ribbon tabs, home tab item, Alt, H. Comments, button, off, Alt, ZC. Editing, combo box, collapsed, Alt, ZM. Catch up, button, off, Alt, C. Share, menu item, collapsed, menu key Alt, ZS. Feedback, button, Alt, Y2. Clipboard, 1 of 9, paste, split button, Alt, H, V. Up. Phone, character border, button, off, Alt, H, FB. Bold, button, off, Alt, H, 1, Control plus B. Ability Tools Webinar.word.docs, editing. Microsoft selected.
Okay, so I showed you how I can navigate with the keyboard, and narrator will tell me what element is in focus. The name of it, the type of control, and something about the state. For example, if it's a toggle button, whether it's on or off. And it was also speaking some auxiliary information like the key tips that you can press or the keyboard shortcut you could press to get to that command more quickly. Um, it is quite the learning curve to use the screen reader, but with this information, you can do everything and know about everything on the screen without having to see the screen or without even having a screen. So that is really opens up a lot of doors for how you can use the app. I will show you next how you can read the document content with Narrator.
Move to beginning of text. Microsoft Word is accessible to people with disabilities. Heading Level 1. People with disabilities can use Microsoft Word together with accessibility features and assistive technologies for a better experience.
Heading Level 2. People can operate Word with just the keyboard. Enter list 1.
The keyboard provides an alternative to people with mobility impairments that make it difficult or impossible to use a mouse or other pointing device. 2. The keyboard provides an alternative for people with very low vision or those who are blind and can't see the mouse cursor.
Okay, so what I did there is used some keyboard shortcuts in Narrator, caps B to move the cursor to the beginning of the document, and caps C to start reading from that point. And then it finds the content in the document and iterates through it and reads it for me. So that's an example of that. I will show you one more thing, which is that I can navigate through the document by heading. This is like, I'm not trying to read everything, I'm just trying to skip around. Imagine if this was a 500-page document, and the interesting part that I want to get to is on page 350. I don't want to read everything till I get there. I want to kind of skip around and find it and then start reading. So one way you can do it is use a feature in Narrator called Scan Mode. Which is optimized for reading content quickly. And then there's an H key that lets you jump to the next heading. So that's the way that I'm navigating the document.
Scan. Scan off. Scan. Microsoft Word is accessible to people with disabilities. Title. People with disabilities can use Microsoft Word together with accessibility features and assistive technologies for a better experience. Heading 1. People can operate Word with just the keyboard. Heading 2. People with low vision and light sensitivity can use these features to see the content better. Heading 2.
Okay, so I would just keep pressing H until I find the heading that I'm looking for, and then I could start reading from that point. So I will pause there. You could really spend hours, months, talking about how to use the screen reader. But this is just a very light introduction to give you an idea about how it works. And if you are losing your vision and you think that this would be helpful, it's something you could start to learn more about. Or if you work together with anybody who has low vision, it's helpful for you to know about this so that you can design your content better to include them.
All right, and we have 2 hands raised. I'll have Sheila, did you have a question? Looks like you're still on mute. Let me see if I can.
Find the unmute button is hard. I was, because I wasn't sure where it was going to pop up. First, I want to say that there are different voices and you can change the speech rate. That speech rate was quite fast. I can keep up with it, but I've been listening to screen readers for 30 years or more. Whoa, more like 40. Anyway, and there are different voices that you can have. You can also change the pitch and tone and all that, which is deeper dive than anyone has time for, and that's okay. But what I feel bad about is that earlier I wrote a chat which said, if you, Peter, at the very beginning of of showing things, you were moving the mouse around, and as a blind person who cannot see what you're doing, and I was not getting any feedback about what you were mousing over. A quick way would have been turn on the screen reader so people could hear that without you having to say every word. And the other thing, and I feel bad that I don't have a better solution because it's hard for a human to listen to a screen reader and another human at the same time. I can't do it. Maybe other people can. But the other part is, there were a lot of, like when you were doing the color filters, not the contrast and stuff, but the very first things, you were saying words I've never heard and I don't even know what they mean. And there is kind of an assumption that someone will know what these visual terms mean. And I don't. I've been blind all my life, and maybe even people who haven't been blind all their lives don't know what we're talking about. And I need a level of description, but I was thinking of as using the screen reader as a way to give some of the description so you didn't have to do it all. I don't know what other solutions there are though. And the last thing is the reason the ribbons are so hard is if folks were paying attention to how long the string of keys are to get to a particular command, it's insane. And I miss the old menus that were easy to get around in so that you didn't have to memorize every shortcut, but you could quickly get somewhere. And now these ribbons don't work that way. And we've not gotten back, and I don't know, like I need a much simpler, like I need way less clutter. I wind up turning off half the everything's in Word because it's thinking for me and stuff. And I don't know how to get at that, like how to discuss that and make real change that isn't crazy making. I hope I'm making sense.
Yeah, we won't be able to get into all that in this webinar, but I'd love to follow up with you to get more of your feedback and ideas. You definitely should try to send us your thoughts and feedback on the product and ideas for making it better through the feedback command. It'll submit a
Tried.
report to us and we
I
read that.
wanna talk to people because
Mhm.
I don't
Sure.
I don't like the reason I don't do the 365 is I have a newer version of Word, but I want what happened today to be able to happen tomorrow again if I need to.
Mhm.
Or and not have it change without notice and without any thought of how it's going to affect me.
Understood.
Yeah, that's great feedback. I think we'll have a link at the end as well for everyone to give that feedback in, because I do think that it is great. So we'll shoot you that link, Sheila, and any other information that you might want to get from her, Peter. We can
Okay.
work on that. We do have a couple extra other questions, and
Okay.
then we'll shoot that link out at the end for you there, Sheila. I have Joe with his hand up.
So I've noticed in other screen reader software that it stumbles on certain, like a decimal point or a dot or a period, and it reads it wrong. And I've had to actually, and I don't have a specific example, but I remember having to write out the word because that's the way I want it to be read, as opposed to actually having the that particular punctuation, not like an exclamation point, but just
Right.
some other things that are kind of minor. Have you, or has anybody, has you seen any stumbling on it reading, certain grammar or certain punctuations um incorrectly?
So that varies across screen readers. They each do text to speech, and text to speech involves parsing that text to understand its meaning. Like, is this dot the end of a sentence, or is it the decimal point in a number, or is it something else? And it doesn't always get it right. It tries to parse that based on its knowledge of natural language, but sometimes it is wrong. And the screen readers typically have a few different modes where instead of reading it in the normal way, as just words and kind of skipping the punctuation or parsing it as part of the grammar, you could read each character explicitly, including the punctuation. You can do things like that. It varies across screen readers, and they have different designs about how best to do that. I would say though that still the parsing text and turning it into speech is still an art form, and it's not always perfect. So that's one of the things you see come through when using a screen reader. And yeah, we're always looking for ways to make that better. But currently, you will see those types of artifacts, and just have to use the features in the screen reader to kind of cope with them the best that you can. Thank you for the feedback. It gets a little deeper than what we can cover in today's webinar. So if you want to have further discussion on that, we'll try to set up some time to talk.
Is there, just a quick follow-up, is there
Mhm.
like a feedback loop line that one can leave a comment kind of directly to the accessibility team at Microsoft?
Yeah, so I do recommend clicking the feedback button in the app and filling out the form and submitting a report there. In the handout document near the end, I've also included links to um, our support desk that is specifically geared toward accessibility scenarios. It's called the Disability Answer Desk, or the Enterprise Disability Desk for enterprise customers. And that's where you can ask those types of questions and give feedback or report bugs on the products.
Great, thank you everyone for your great feedback and questions. I think that was all I had on there, Peter.
Okay, great. I will move on so we can cover some more topics. I really appreciate all of the engagement and discussion. Next, I'm going to get into some features that are geared toward people with limited mobility. So if you can't type, or if it's just slow or difficult or painful to type, dictating is an option you can use. And we have dictation as a built-in feature in Word. So I'll just show you what that looks like quickly. Click the dictate button. With dictate, I can write with my voice. Bold that. And then click the dictate button again when you're done. So if that's kind of a faster way for you to enter and write the content in your document, you can do that. And there are simple editing features, like you saw, bold that. You can select certain words by saying select so-and-so. And that can be, you know, a faster way for you to work. Next, I will show you a feature in the operating system. In Windows, it's called voice access. Mac has a very similar feature called voice control, and that takes things a step further. You use your voice and speech not only to enter text, but also to perform commands. And I'll show you what that looks like in Word. So go to Settings, Accessibility, and then go to the Speech section to turn on the switch for voice access. So it boots it up, but it's not really on yet. You still need to wake it up. So that's the state we're in. So then I will wake it up, and then I will do some commands in Word. Voice access wake up. Click bold. Okay, so that was really simple command. It knows the labels of all of these buttons on the screen. So there's a button called bold. And so when I said click bold, it was able to find that button and go and put the mouse pointer there and click it. So, you know, without using a mouse or pointer device or even a keyboard, if my voice works well, I could, you know, interact with the app in that way. And I will show you another way you can get to the bold button in case you don't happen to know the name of it, or saying click bold is not working for you. Here's another alternative. You can use numbers instead. Show numbers. Click 80. Okay, so when I said show numbers, it took a second there, but it found all of the clickable things on the screen and put a number overlay near them. And I saw that the bold button, the one I wanted to click, had the label 80 next to it. So it said click 80, and then that click that button. So that's another way to get to it, especially if you don't happen to know what the label is. Then I will show you another way to interact called show grid, which lets you zero in on a particular spot on the screen and click it, especially if it has no name or number associated with it. Show grid. 6, 4, 4. Click 9. Okay, so usually within a few iterations, you can just keep subdividing until you got pretty accurately. You've specified a spot on the screen that you want to click. And in this case, I wanted to select that star shape. And I knew where it was, and I just had to iterate a few times to get to that spot. And that's a good way to work with it. You know, as far as the app is concerned, I was just moving my mouse there and clicking there. So voice access gives you that ability to position and click the mouse. And I will show you one more thing, is that you can also do dictation with voice access. With voice access, I can write with my voice. Bold that. So very similar to the built-in dictation that you saw in Word, you can also do those types of scenarios with voice access. So any questions on that?
Yes, can custom words be added to the vocabulary?
I believe so. You want to refer to the voice access documentation to learn all the specifics about what you can do there.
Great, thank you, Peter.
Yep. I will quickly show you a couple of features that could help you if you are deaf or hard of hearing and are trying to understand audio or video content in your documents. One is that you could take an audio recording and you can transcribe it so that you can understand what's in that recording. And then you can use that text. You can place it in the document if you want. So you go to dictate and there's a transcribe item on that dropdown. And that's where you can choose a file that has your pre-recorded audio. And it'll take a few seconds to transcribe it. And then you will see that text and you can play the audio to make sure that it matches. And if you can hear the audio and you can compare the two, then you can make some corrections. But if you can't, then the text can provide you.
Thank you for joining us today to learn about innovation at Van Arsdale.
Oh, there we go. And you can take a look at that text and insert it into the document. Yeah, that's a good way to understand what's in that audio content. Word has pretty limited support for videos. In Word for Windows, you can insert an online video from a provider like YouTube. And then what you're doing is you're using YouTube's video player within Word. And within YouTube, the publisher of the video can add the closed captions there. And then in the player, you can go and turn them on. So I'm just kind of showing you that you can do all that from within Word. So I'm going to click on this YouTube video, and then once I start playing it, I can turn on the closed captions.
Microsoft Word knows a thing or two. It's been there for your essays, short stories, reports. It still has everything you know and love.
Okay, so you can access all the features of the YouTube video player, including the closed captions. YouTube also in recent years has added multiple audio channel support. So if the video had a secondary audio channel with descriptions, for example, you could turn that on as well and hear the audio descriptions. And any questions on that?
Yes, we have two questions. Does
Great.
the voice access and dictation work while using like another screen reader?
They do work together, yes. One caveat though is you will want to probably use a headset so that what you're hearing from the screen reader is as isolated from what the microphone is hearing. Sometimes like maybe a noise canceling speakerphone will do that type of thing as well. Otherwise, if the microphone is picking up what the screen reader is saying, you'll get some strange results. But usually something like I said, a speakerphone or a headset will help you isolate that so you can use them together.
Great. And then is there a shortcut key to enable the transcript on the videos?
I am not sure. So when I was turning on captions on the YouTube video, that is a feature of the YouTube video player. I'm not sure if it has a shortcut. That's something
And
you
then
could look
lastly,
at.
multiple channels are also good for language translations, correct?
Absolutely, yes. They it's been marketed that you can reach a larger audience by putting in multiple language audio channels and multiple language captions as well. So that's another great use case for those.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I will now cover Immersive Reader. which can really be helpful for people who are dyslexic, people who are learning the language, learning to read. And this just helps you with the reading process. It kind of reads together with you and assists you in that process. So let me show you what that looks like. So I've got my Word document here, and I can go to View and turn on Immersive Reader to see a personalized different view of the document where there's more spacing. And I can control how much spacing and how wide the lines are and what the colors are and how many lines to focus on at a time. All of these things can make it easier to read.
Microsoft Word is accessible to people with disabilities. People with disabilities can use Microsoft Word together with accessibility features and assistive technologies for a better experience.
And so that's read aloud so that you can have it read to you, or you can kind of read together with it, especially if you're learning to read that language yourself. Okay, so yeah, that's Immersive Reader, and it's helpful for many different scenarios. And again, this is all a view customization. So I didn't make any edits to the document, and other people viewing the document aren't going to see it in these colors. So I'm just personalizing it to make it easier for me to read.
We do have a quick question, Peter. Do you know which voice that was and how we can get access to that?
I'm not certain. I know that each of these features that I've been showing has a number of voices that you can choose from. They usually are given a fictitious character's name. So I don't happen to know the name of this character, but yeah, each one of these will have a list, and you can go into the settings to choose the one that you want. Now, the voice that you use with Immersive Reader may not be the same set of voices that you can use with Narrator, for example. But each of those does provide multiple voices that you can choose from.
Lovely. And I just wanted to let you know, Peter, we do have about 2 to 3 more minutes left in the webinar.
Okay, thank you so much. One more setting I will show you, which is some people find that motion on the screen can be unsettling for them. It can make them nauseous or lose focus. And I will show you that there is some animation that's just kind of built into the user interface that's helpful for most people to just kind of understand what's happening. But for others, they maybe would prefer not to have it there. I will show you when I click a button on the ribbon to open a task pane. The pane itself slides in from the right, and the document slides over to make room for the pane. Okay, and then when you close the pane, it slides back. That helps you just understand the mechanics of the pane. Well, if you don't like the animation, you can go to Settings, Accessibility, Visual Effects, Animation Effects, and turn off the switch. And then we go back to Word and we open the pane again. And now you don't have the sliding effect anymore. So if you are someone who prefers not to have that much motion, turn on that setting, and that way you'll have less motion as you're using Word. Okay, really good. I have all this other content about how to create documents that are accessible to people with disabilities. I think we'll need to save that for another day. But I really appreciate all of the engagement and all that you've stayed here and learned with me about Word and how it can be used by people with disabilities using the accessibility features and assistive technologies. And really appreciate all the questions and look forward to keeping the conversation going with you. Thank you so much for your time and attention today. Is there anything else we need to do in closing?
No, we dropped a lot of information in the link just now, future upcoming webinars. We are going to have a PowerPoint, and I believe, I mean, if you're down, Peter, we would like to schedule another one to finish the rest of this one, so that we
Absolutely.
can learn how to author documents.
Yep.
And there are a few questions that were still left over, so I'll shoot them to you, Peter,
Okay.
and get the answers for everyone who has some questions. But let's do a part 2 on this and finish it up at a later date. How does that sound for everyone? If that works with you, Peter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lovely. Well, we'll send you guys the information. I'll get some questions to the answers to the questions that weren't answered. But we do have a hard stop now, and I'll follow up with all the information that we've thrown into this link in the chat.
Thank you so much, Peter. It was a really great webinar. Lots of information, and obviously you got lots of fans.
Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Yeah. And yeah, we'd just love to hear from you. All of your experiences, all your challenges with this. It's all a work in progress, and we're trying to make it better. So let me know what's been helpful for you and what you wish and would like to see. And all of that is super valuable for us trying to plan and design, what we need to do to make the product better for you.
Perfect. Thank you
Great.
so much again.
Thank you. See everyone soon.
Thank you. Have a
Okay.
great day.